Star Wars Battlefront 2 got some new weapons with this latest Rise of Skywalker DLC update. No, they're not the kind of weapons that you can equip to your base trooper classes, and they don't come with upgrades or customization options, but they are new weapons nonetheless, and they certainly spice up the gameplay of Battlefront 2. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to talk about the new weapons and the new reinforcements that just dropped with the Rise of Skywalker DLC. If you want to stay in the loop with more Battlefront 2 and Fallen Order updates, be sure you're subscribed to the channel and you're getting notified so you know when every video comes out. So, if you're a longtime player of Battlefront 2, especially one who has stuck around since 2017, you'll most likely remember this now infamous promo trailer promising new weapons in post-launch DLC. This was teased alongside new maps, new heroes, and so naturally the fanbase expected new weapons to arrive in Battlefront 2 at some point in the future. I think most players, when they see that, they expect new weapons to come to the base trooper classes. Weapons that you get to unlock through gameplay, equip attachments to, and then choose from a list of other equipable weapons. Sadly to say, 2 years later in 2019, we still don't have weapons of that nature. Each base trooper class still only has the 3 unlockable weapons that they launched with, and then the default weapon that each one begins with, for a total of 4 weapons per class. There are actually a total of 36 playable weapons in Battlefront 2, just based off the trooper classes alone. Unfortunately, the default blaster, which changes depending on your faction, has the exact same stats across the board, so you can look at that as the same weapon. For example, the Imperial Stormtrooper's E11 does the exact same damage and has the exact same fire rate as the First Order's F11D. This feels a little bit limiting to the weapons, because if the default weapons had their own individual stats, it would feel like there is a greater variety of weapons in Battlefront 2, which there actually are. It's the fact that the default weapons all share the same stats across the board that makes the variety of weapons feel very small. There's also the fact that the default weapons are locked depending on which faction you're using at any given time. I mentioned the First Order's F11D earlier, which you can only use if you are playing the Assault class of the First Order. If you're playing the Resistance, the Rebels, or even the Separatists, you will never be able to use the F11D on the Assault class of those factions. So why do I bring this up? Battlefront 2's design director, Dennis Bronville, provided a little bit of clarification on exactly what the team meant with that promo trailer, talking about the new weapons. This is a tweet he put out a couple of months ago. He says, "I hear you, I just need to voice that we have delivered multiple new weapons post-launch, whether they're new lightsabers for heroes or blasters on reinforcements. Whether that's the weapons you wanted, I cannot say, but claiming we haven't delivered new weapons is just not true." I actually got involved in this on Twitter, and I retweeted this talking about how Dennis is using some clickbait logic here, which if you really want, you could probably apply to this video as well, I wouldn't mind. But that bit about new blasters on the reinforcements that he's talking about, that's what I really want to focus on in today's video. If that's the logic that we're going off of, then yeah, Battlefront 2 has had its fair share of new weapons. The trend with the new blasters started with the Clone Commando, who brought to the game the DC-17M Repeating Blaster, a weapon that had never been seen before in Battlefront 2. It was a new weapon at that time, but the only way you could play that new weapon is if you played the Clone Commando. With this latest Rise of Skywalker update, we got basically the exact same treatment with most of the reinforcements that came with the update, namely the Sith Trooper, the First Order Jet Trooper, and the Ovesian Gunner of the Resistance. The Kafek Spy also technically got a new weapon, but putting the word modified in front of a weapon that already exists in the game isn't exactly new. But let's take a look at these new weapons that came with the reinforcements from the Rise of Skywalker update, because they are actually pretty cool, and they definitely spice up Battlefront 2's gameplay. First, let's check out the Ovesian Gunner and her modified Z6B rotary cannon. Ah yes, there's that word, modified again, but I'm making an exception in this case because this is actually very new to Battlefront 2. The Z6B rotary cannon is very similar, if not the exact same weapon that the Heavy class uses when they activate their Sentry ability. I'm talking specifically about the default Sentry mode, not the Explosive Sentry or the Mobile Sentry or the other variations that exist, just the standard chain gun type Sentry mode. That's basically what the Ovesian Gunner's rotary cannon is. It's the Sentry mode that you can use all the time. This cannon has an incredibly fast fire rate with a pretty damn good damage output to boot, which makes it, I think, one of the strongest weapons in the game right now. Couple it with the gunner's defensive stance ability, and you have a very powerful weapon that you can fire for a long time, all while getting health back as long as you're doing damage. This makes the Ovesian Gunner, in my opinion, the strongest reinforcement in Battlefront 2 right now, and I definitely foresee a nerf coming to her soon, in the same way that the Clone Commando got a nerf because of his battle focus ability. Despite the nerf that is definitely coming to the Gunner, I highly recommend going out and trying the Ovesian Gunner if you have not yet. It's super strong and it's super satisfying to just mow down a group of stormtroopers coming at you in co-op mode. They really don't stand a chance, especially if you've got the defensive stance ability active. The Gunner also has an ability which can transform the rotary cannon into a more explosive sentry type weapon, firing high damage explosive shells at the target. The fire rate is a lot slower than the chain gun mode, obviously, but the Gunner can switch freely between both modes, so take advantage of them. So the modified Z6B rotary cannon, that's the first new weapon we got with the Rise of Skywalker DLC. I will reiterate though that this is only locked to the Ovesian Gunner. If you're using any other class, you will unfortunately not be able to use the rotary cannon. Next up we have the First Order Jet Trooper, which is the newly reworked aerial class for the First Order. They bring a new launcher type weapon to Battlefront 2, the G125 projectile launcher. This is a fully automatic blaster rifle type weapon with a moderate fire rate and decent damage per shot. It replaces the old First Order Jet Trooper's weapon, the SE-44C, which is used by the officer class. It was actually worse than the officer weapon because it did not come with attachments the same way the officers did. So this complete rework to the First Order Jet Trooper is actually really good on more than one level. We get a new design and a new weapon with different functions. In its base form, like I mentioned before, it acts as a fully automatic blaster rifle, but if you switch to the tri-barrel projectile mode, you can then fire highly explosive shells instead. These shells are better for taking out vehicles and shields, but they still do decent damage to infantry. However, if you're trying to take out more infantry and heroes than you are vehicles, I would just stick to the standard blaster rifle mode. It's a little bit easier to aim and the damage output is more consistent that way. The G125 projectile launcher is unfortunately locked behind the First Order Jet Trooper, and the only way to use it is to select the Jet Trooper using battle points. It's a decent incentive to actually choose the First Order Jet Trooper though, because he is pretty fun to play. His new jetpack mechanics make him very unique, and coupling that with the G1 makes him a very satisfying character to play as. But now we're going to move on to the last new weapon that came with the Rise of Skywalker update, and that belongs to the First Order Sith Trooper. The Sith Trooper's weapon is called the S1 W48 Blaster Rifle. This is a fully automatic blaster rifle that actually comes with a secondary fire mode, which you can activate by aiming down the sights. The secondary fire uses up more weapon heat, but you're rewarded at the same time by a 5-round burst that causes huge damage to anybody it hits. Unlike other secondary fire modes like Leia Organa's, this one does not track the target, so you will have to be accurate if you're using secondary fire, but the reward is well worth it if you can aim well. A good tactic to taking out infantry is to use the secondary fire to cause huge initial damage and then finishing them off with regular shots. As a fully automatic weapon, the standard shots actually have a pretty decent rate of fire, as well as a moderate damage output, so couple of those together and you're looking at a really powerful blaster rifle. Aesthetically speaking, I think it's also the best looking weapon in the game. The black and red really complement each other well, and hint at the Sith Trooper's sinister intentions. While all of these new weapons have some kind of secondary fire mode, the Sith Trooper's S1 is unique in that the secondary fire does not come in the form of an ability. The Resistance Gunner and the First Order Jet Trooper respectively have to activate their left and right abilities if they want to use the explosive shells. All the Sith Trooper has to do is aim down the sights and he gets that same benefit, which sets his weapon apart a little bit. But those are the 3 new weapons that arrived in Battlefront 2 with the Rise of Skywalker DLC. The Z6B rotary cannon, the G125 projectile launcher, and the S1W48 blaster rifle. If we're going off of what Dennis Bronville said in his tweet, then yeah, Battlefront 2 has seen some weapons post-launch. Hell, the Kafek Spy even came with a new truncheon, which has not been seen in Battlefront 2 yet. Now, if only they would be willing to give the base trooper classes some new weapons that we can unlock and upgrade with attachments. That would be the next step, and I know the vast majority of the player base would really appreciate it. It does feel a little bit strange that a first and third person shooter has not seen any new unlockable weapons since the game launched. It is strange, but I'll leave that there. And now it's your turn. Leave a comment below and let me know out of these 3, which is your favorite new weapon. And also let me know what your favorite new reinforcement is. I'm partial to the Ovesian Gunner myself. I'm liking her a lot, and her victory pose is absolutely adorable. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. Thanks for stopping by the bazaar and checking out the video. Give it a thumbs up, drop a comment, subscribe, and get notified if you're new. And I'll see you all out on the battlefront. Peace.